Hi, folks, it's Gary here, and a very warm welcome to the fourth official here on YouTube. And the rumbling from Sunday's League Cup final goes on and on and on, and we're here to bring you a special video highlighting some of the fallout from the League Cup final. And yet again, it's VAR that is in the spotlight, and SFA chief Ian Maxwell came out yesterday and presented quite a flippant response to the non-awarding of a penalty from referee John Beaton on Sunday for a foul by Liam Scales on Rangers' Václav Černý after 3 minutes of extra time. Waiting on the SFA's head of kind of refereeing, Willie Collum, to come out with his YouTube video where he will likely present a apology for a decision being made incorrectly. And Ian Maxwell's comments, the flippant ones yesterday, of the fact that referees will always make wrong decisions and it's what makes our game the game it is because it gives us something to talk about. Well, I'm afraid, Mr. Maxwell, if you're watching this morning, that's not good enough, because that's the whole point of why VAR was brought in to Scotland, was to help out what is a very limited talent pool of officials in this country to try and get more decisions right than they get wrong. And whilst no one can point a finger at John Beaton's performance on Sunday and say that he deliberately went out his way to come up with the wrong decision, there was a significant failure from the VAR room with Alan Muir in there, with Frank Connor in there, for him to go back to the monitor and get him to double look at that decision with Václav Černý, because all the images show that the foul was inside the area and therefore a penalty should have been awarded. And getting an apology 4, 5, 6 days later after the game from Willie Collum to say a mistake has been made and we're sorry that we got it wrong just doesn't cut it. It's not good enough. It's now 2 domestic cup finals in a row where there's been controversial decisions that have gone in the favour of one team over another. If you look back to the Scottish Cup final in the summer, the foul on Joe Hart, which there was only a foul seen on the goalkeeper rather than the push on Nico Rashkin in the first place, that pushed him into Joe Hart, that saw Abdullah Sima's goal ruled out in that game. And no one's saying that had a penalty been awarded on Sunday, had Rangers gone on to score it, they would have went on to win the cup, or had that goal been awarded in the Scottish Cup final in May, that they would have went on to win the trophy. But once again, the highlighting of the fact that it's not good enough and it's not been consistently applied with the rules of the game, it just adds to this kind of theory of patterns of assistance and VR only actually being used to help specific people. So mistakes are always going to happen, and we can account for that. But the reason why VAR was introduced was to try and minimise those number of mistakes that were going to be made. And it can't be good for Ian Maxwell and for Willie Collum for yet again a big showpiece cup final for everyone to be coming away from the game and what they're talking about is the wrong decisions made by Scottish officials rather than what was a really good, entertaining game of football that was a great example of what is good about Scottish football. But once again, the SFA seemed to be delighted to just want to absorb any sorts of controversy and try and go, well, that's what our game is. Well, I'm sorry, Mr. Maxwell, your flippant comments yesterday were not good enough. And I, for one, don't believe you that you've not had any other complaints this year from other managers about VAR decisions. In fact, only just last week, Stuart Kettlewell, the Motherwell manager, was on media talking about a conversation he had with Willie Collum in relation to a non-awarding of a penalty from the VAR in his game against St Johnstone. So that doesn't wash with me. And I'm afraid until there is a real desire from the SFA to properly look at their governance and to properly try and drive this game forward, then we're always going to continue to have these sorts of conversations, because VAR is not being used in a consistent manner. It is not being used to re-referee games. It is being used subjectively, and it's being used subjectively by the people that are in the booth to fit a narrative that supports them in terms of what they want to try and do. Now, this isn't sour grapes off the back of losing a cup final. That could have happened anyway, whether or not the decision had been given on Sunday. But what isn't good enough is having to wait 6 days and then for Mr. Maxwell to say, well, everyone will be tuning in to Willie Collum's video this week. That'll be getting extra views. That tells you, Mr. Maxwell, that it's not good enough that people 5 days on are still talking about the fact that Scottish referees are abysmal. We've got people like Matthew McDermott, you've got people like David Dickinson who constantly are in the spotlight for getting decisions wrong. And this is not just against Rangers, this is against every team in the league. The standard of Scottish officiating is at an all-time low. And until you want to do something about that, Mr. Collum and Mr. Maxwell, then we're going to continue to have to shine a light on videos like this to try and shine a light into why you think it's acceptable for the teams in Scotland to pay towards a flawed system which isn't going to give you consistent results. Now, I'm delighted to report that Rangers' new chief executive, Patrick Stewart, was in conversation with Willie Collum on Monday, trying to obviously drive forward a narrative of looking to try and get an explanation into what happened at the weekend. And this is something that Rangers and every team in Scotland have to do, is trying to push that envelope to try and drive standards forward. It's something that we hear all the time from Celtic, and you've only got to look back at statements from the likes of Peter Lawwell and to try and mention the fact that Scottish referees are not good enough. Now, one solution to that is for these big games, cup finals, Old Firm games, is you maybe go externally. I don't know, but we have to do something about it. It is not good enough. It's not fit for purpose at the moment. And as the famous song goes, and we're going to paraphrase it, VAR, what is it good for? Absolutely nothing. Thank you for watching. I'll speak to you next time. Goodbye.